Hey mamas, Corinne here, and welcome back to my modern village where we talk about anything and everything that has to do with you and your little ones. So I'm sitting here at my home office, starting my workday, and something just occurred to me. So I would say less than a week or so into the school year. My older son goes to school now 5 days a week for, a good chunk of the day. And when we were only a few days or so into the school year, I dropped him off one morning when I was still on leave, and his teacher is like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I was like, "Okay." Right? Like he's 2 years old, almost 3 years old. Like what could you possibly need to talk to me about only a few days into the school year, right? So I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course." So, we kind of moved over to the side. There was another teacher there that finished checking in all the other kids. Like we checked in my son, Camden went in his classroom, so he wasn't even there with us. I had this one with me, but he was in the stroller, thankfully asleep. So she's just talking to me and she's like, "So Camden's having a really hard time." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "He seems like he's really enjoying school so far." Again, this was like within the first week of school. And I was like, "I know he had a rough day, maybe like the first or second day." There was another little girl that was getting dropped off, and she like she had a really hard time that morning. She started crying, and that kind of triggered Camden to start crying. But I was like, overall, he seems like he's been happy. Like we asked him in the morning, "Are you ready for school?" And he's like, "Yes." So I'm like, "What do you mean he's having a hard time?" And she was like, "He can't keep his hands to himself." And I'm like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, he's pinching and pushing the other kids." And I was like, "Really?" So, Camden did start kind of pinching us a little bit over the summer. I do think it started right around the time Logan was born. So maybe that was just like a normal kind of acting out thing or, an attention type of thing. But, we've been working on it with him at home, and we're like, anytime he pinches us, we're like, "Camden, no, don't pinch." And he knows it's wrong too, because sometimes he'll be like, "I pinched mommy." And we're like, "No, baby, like that's not what we want to be happy about. Like that's not a good thing. It's a bad thing." But of course we don't like hit him or pinch him back or anything like that. We just kind of raise our voices and we're like, "Camden, don't pinch," trying to like break that of him. So anyway, so she's telling me this, that he's like pinching the other kids at school and pushing them. And I was just like, okay. So she's telling me that he's doing this, and he'll even like go to like give the other kids a hug, and he'll like reach behind them real quick and like pinch them. So he's doing it very like sneaky. Like he'll even wait until like the teachers turn their backs, and then like he'll do it to the other kids. Like he definitely knows not to do it to the adults. So I'm like, so she's like, he's very smart about it. And I was like, well, I'm glad you think my kid is smart, but obviously him being smart and finding ways to kind of hurt other kids is not a good thing. And she did say that some of the other kids have cried. So I was like, oh my gosh, like now we're those parents, with that kid, like who's kind of picking on the other kids. And I will say last year, he was the kid that was picked on. Like there was this other little girl that she used to bite him all the time. Like she even like was no longer in the classroom by the end of the year. I don't know if she was asked to leave or if the parents just pulled her, but there were several days where the director or the administrator of the preschool called me to tell me that, my son was bit by this other kid, and it happened several times for the same kid. So I don't know if he's old enough or cognitively developed enough to kind of put together like I was picked on last year and this year I'm not going to put up with it. I have no idea. But yeah, it was a little troubling, I guess, to hear that he's kind of picking on the other kids at school. So, I talked to her for like 20-30 minutes or so at drop off, which, again, I was still on leave. So I was like, okay, I have the time here to kind of stay and talk to you. And I was like, "What do you want? Like, how can I help? What do you want us to be doing?" And she was just asking really like, "What do you guys do at home? How do you deal with it?" So that's when I was, explaining that we, raise our voices. We're like, "Camden, no pinching," right? We're kind of stern with our voices, but we haven't really done like timeout or anything like that. She was like, "Okay, we definitely do that too. We'll grab his hands. We talk about having quiet hands and nice hands with our friends. And, if the other kid is sad or upset, we kind of make him go over there and ask him like, 'Do you like to see your friends be sad?' And he's like, 'No.' So just trying to show him, I guess, the consequences of his actions, which I've heard or read that I think kids don't really truly understand empathy until they're more like 5 years old or so. So I don't really know if he's putting two and two together there, but I was like, okay, like we can definitely work on that at home too. Like if he pinches one of us or hurts us, like, kind of look sad and be like, you made mommy sad. Do you want to make mommy sad? And kind of see if that elicits a reaction for him too. So, of course, immediately when she pulled me over to the side, she's like, hey, I need to talk to you. I immediately got defensive. I'm like, what is wrong with my kid? Like, you don't know him. You've only been working with him for a few days, but thankfully she was not accusing of anything. She was just kind of trying to ask about his home routine and kind of if he'd been doing this at home and what we were doing to work on it. So I was like, all right, so we'll kind of work on it. And she's like, yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated. I just wanted to kind of see how he's doing at home. And I was like, okay, it's like, it's been a huge change, of course, having a new brother, but, we'll continue to work on it. Keep me updated. So anyway, so flash forward, a few weeks now, and I'm sitting here working, and my husband left to take him to school. And I was like, I haven't heard a word. Like, he's been, my husband's been taking him to school this week, for the last 4 or 5 days or so. And I've asked him, I'm like, has the teacher said anything to you about the pinching? And he's like, nope, not a word. So I'm like, where's the follow-up here, right? Like, he was doing this thing that was apparently so bad that one day she even had to call for an extra teacher to kind of come into the classroom and just sit with him just to kind of help, keep his hands quiet. And, like, he wasn't being really disruptive, but he would just, every chance he got, just kind of like put his hands on the other kids. And I was like, well, that's pretty extreme. And I haven't heard anything. I even asked her, I was like, is this something where you would need me to come and sit in the classroom with him all day and just kind of, be that authority figure from home to sort of be there? And she's like, no, of course not. I was like, okay. And so I asked her, and I was like, okay, well, you've let me know that he really likes school, like he enjoys being there. So is this something where, maybe if he's having a really hard day and he's really just not listening and he won't keep his hands to himself that day, maybe I should come pick him up early, sort of as like a punishment, and like remove him from school, so that way he knows, like, hey, if I'm pinching and I'm not listening, or, I can't keep my hands to myself, like, I don't get to stay at school all day, I have to come home. And she was like, no. So I was kind of like, okay, so what's the action plan here? Like, how are we going to help him work through this, other than, at home being very stern that he's not to pinch at all, right? Not even like something super gentle where it looks like he's playing, like absolutely no pinching, no, no gestures like he's going to pinch at all. And she was like, I don't know, we'll just kind of see how it goes. So anyways, so yeah, so I'm sitting here and I was like, well, I haven't really heard anything, so I guess it's not getting worse. I will say he's gotten a lot better at home. He hasn't really pinched at all, I don't think, in the last week or two. So maybe it was just this transition back to school. He was just kind of testing the waters. I don't know. But I'm not sure, moms, if you've had any experience with something like this. Maybe it was tied in with your kid starting school, or maybe it was with the introduction of a new sibling. I don't know. But I would love to see in the comments, if you've experienced something like this, any sort of kind of physical acting out, whether it's, hitting, pushing, pinching, biting, like whatever. Like, what did your kid do, either when they started school, or if there was, like I said, the introduction of a new sibling or something that disrupted their routine. So what did you do about it? So again, like I kind of thought we would be having a little bit more of an action plan and regular follow-up to try and help him work through this. But as far as I know, it seems like he's been working through it just fine. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see if it gets any worse or anything, but if anything else happens later on in the year. Like I said, now we're, not even a month yet into the school year, so, maybe he just needed a little bit of transition time, and now he's over it. So definitely something that, was hard to hear as a mom at first. Like I said, obviously I got defensive at first, and then, I appreciate that the teacher was just trying to understand our routine at home and just trying to help, understand him and kind of what he does and how he works through problems. But still, like, you don't want your kid to ever be hurting anybody else, of course, and you don't want them to be hurt at school either. So definitely a difficult spot to be in. But, it seems like we're working through it. So, yeah, like I said, so if you've had any experience with this, moms, please let me know, whether you're kind of currently going through it or it's been something you had to deal with in the past. Maybe your kids are a little bit older now. I'd love to hear all about it. But as always, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure to grab my email newsletter, and I will see you next time for more updates.